Okay, so let's just jump right into the tools and the products that I use. Some of these you may or may not have. Some of these you may want to try. And some of these, like extra rulers and stuff, if you're more of a new quilter, you maybe haven't had the time to accumulate everything that I have. And, do what works for you. I'm showing you what works for me. So let's start out with some basic tools. Of course, we want a rotary cutter and a sharp blade. So I've got a rotary cutter with a sharp blade. I'm going to set these aside as I go through them. And then I hope you don't need this, and I really hope I don't need this, but I always end up needing it, a good seam ripper. And if you don't know already, the more use they get, the little knife cutting part of it gets dull. So you may need to replace these once in a while. I do. Hopefully you don't. And then I like to have a nice pair of actual scissors, but I like to keep for cutting, dog ears or small half square triangles or small flipped corners off. I usually don't use my rotary cutter and ruler for that. So I like to have a nice sharp pair of scissors, but they're heavy. So next to my machine, I like a nice sharp pair of thread snips. And then I can sit it right here where my machine goes like this. And then they're always handy for me. Of course, I like to have a pencil for marking my diagonal lines and making notes on my pattern, whatever you might need. And then I like to prepare my fabric with magic spray, premium quilting and craft spray, or some sort of starch, best press, whatever you like to use. But because my patterns have a lot of flipped corners and half square triangles that are all on the bias, it is really nice if you pre-treat your fabric with some sort of starch spray. You can do what works for you. I just lightly mist the right side of my fabric and then just iron it with a hot iron with no steam so that the starch dries. Some people really wet theirs down and let it air dry and then press it. But again, do what works for you. But I recommend doing something to prepare your fabric for cutting. It just shrinks your fibers together and really locks them in. Plus, it also gives a little more body to your fabric, so your fabric's not quite so flimsy, and that also helps. And then I like to have a couple different irons. So I have a little mini iron that's a steam iron, but I've never put water in it. And so I use it as a dry iron. Looks like I need to clean it a little bit. And I'll go through how I use that in a little bit, why I use a dry iron. And then I also like to have a nice big iron, and I use this when I get to bigger pieces, borders, sashing, but I also use it with the starch to prepare my fabric. I don't use my little tiny iron. I want to, get on it and get it done so I can get onto my favorite part, which is sewing. So a nice big iron. And then I also have a wool pressing mat that I keep on a TV tray right next to my sewing machine that I use this little iron on. So it's handy because some of my friends don't do this because it's good to get up and walk to your iron. I agree with that 1000%. But when I sit down to sew, I'm usually on a time crunch. And so I iron right next to me. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. I really love the wool pressing mat. I also have a large one on my ironing boards that I use when I'm preparing my fabrics. But if you're going to use starch, I would recommend that you cover your big wool pressing mats, if you have one, with a piece of muslin. Make a little sheet that goes over it. That way, when it gets really starched and coated from all the use around the edges, you can replace that and your wool pressing mat stays in great shape. And then these are the two products that I really like to use. You can see my labels are pretty worn out, but I really like the Acorn Precision Piecing products. I like the starch pen, and I really like the glue. And I'll include a video in here that shows you how I use these products. I don't use all the steps, especially for the glue. But if you want to use the glue more than I use it, then there's tutorials online from Acorn Precision Piecing that show you how to use them. But I'm going to show you how I use them, and there'll be a separate tutorial, and I use them that way clear through my process, so I won't be re-showing it every month when we do this sew along. These products are awesome. And then I like to have a nice assortment of rulers for cutting out. Of course, I've got my big one to cut my strips for starting. And I've got my mat. You can see it here under my cookie sheet. So I like a nice 6" by 24". A lot of people have a 6½, which is great. But I learned on a 6" ruler. And I have done miscuts if I use a 6½, because I'm so used to a 6". So that's my ruler of choice. This is my second favorite size, 6 by 12. I use it a lot. And then of course I have a little 6" square. I also have a bigger one, but I find myself not using it as much. And then I have the 3" by 12, which I use sometimes, but this is my go-to. Once I get my strips cut and I start cutting off my segments, I use this one so much. And all 4 of these rulers are Quilter Select, because I really love this non-grip finish on the back. It helps me so that I don't have to press so hard when I'm cutting. But there's some quilters that don't like that, because you can't slide them the way you usually slide them. But these are my rulers of choice, so that's what I have. And then for this project, I have some specialty rulers that I like. These are the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmers, and I'm going to slide this over for now so that maybe you can see them better on here. One is for whole size, half square triangles or quarter square triangles, and one is for half sizes, like 2½, 3½, 4½. I love these for squaring up. I used to be a block person, but this saves me 2 sides of squaring, and it's super accurate, and it makes it really easy to square up your hourglass or your quarter squares because of this line that goes along it. And I will also link a tutorial how I use these and how I use them to square up for both quarter square triangles and half square triangles, because I'll do that a lot through my pattern. So I have that. Love these. You can use any ruler for squaring up your half square and quarter square triangles that has a 45-degree line. So if you don't have those specialty rulers or a block lock, you can use a square ruler. And then this particular pattern, there are some trees in here that use the triangle in a square rulers. So I have a couple different ones that I really like. I have the one from Creative Grids. It's great because it also has a gripper around the edge. So that helps keep you, from slipping around. And it does any size from 1" finished down to 9" or 9½" finished. And when we're going through the block tutorial for this, I'll show you how I cut out using these and how they end up. So, and then the other one is the Tri-Rex. It's also a great one that's been around forever. And it does anywhere from 1" finished all the way to 6" finished on this particular ruler. I like this probably better because I like that I have 2 different rulers and I don't have to figure out where to place this to get this. And I get a lot of questions on these because I use this. It's one of my favorite units, a triangle and a square unit. They're so easy to sew up. But I get a lot of questions, is this a 60-degree ruler? And it is not. I don't know the degree of a triangle and a square, but it is not a 60-degree ruler. So if you have a 60-degree ruler, it will not work for this. Just a little FYI. So those are the specialty rulers I use. I don't have a lot that I use. I'm not a gadget girl. But then I really, really recommend that you use some sort of marking alphabets for when you cut out your pieces. So these are custom. They come in the patterns. This is my set for Strawberry Patch, the last one. And I haven't printed these because I'm filming this early. I haven't printed the ones yet for for Peppermint Pine. But if you're following along with the block of the month, you will get a half sheet cardstock of alphabet squares that you can cut out just like I did, and you can use them and they'll match your the pattern, and you can use them through the project. So this is a great thing. Love these. Highly recommend. Something. And then, of course, I don't pin a lot, but when I need to pin, I need to pin. So I've got myself a nice big pin cushion, and these are Quilter Select pins. They're my favorite. I don't know what brand these are, probably Clover, because Clover makes really great notions. These are a little long, but what's nice about both of these pins is they're super fine, and that's what I like for quilting. But I prefer these that are just a little bit shorter. They're both glass head, so that if you have it when you're ironing, it's not gonna melt or ruin anything. So, and then that's about it. That's what I have whenever I start a project or working on it. And then, of course, I have my cute cup, Farm Sweet Farm, with water in it. If it was earlier in the day, trust me, this would have coffee, but it's too late in the day for that. So anyway, you got to have a cute cup with something to drink to keep you hydrated, maybe a few snacks. And then I like to have some sort of tray to organize my projects. So I use this or a flatter board or a smaller cutting mat when I'm cutting out and I'm labeling my pieces so they're all laid out. If they fit in here, I like this tray because it has a lip. So if I bump or slip onto something, my alphabets will get jarred, but my pieces won't fall off. So I like that about this, but it's pretty small, but it is cute. I like cute. Now this is, oh, I've got water on it from my cup. So this is how I keep track of my fabric every month after I've starched it. And so I'll walk you through how that works. There'll be a video on that. I just like to prepare my fabric when I start any block of the month with block 1. I cut my pieces, and then this is for my leftovers and scraps that I don't need for my particular block that month. And that way, next month, if I get a repeat of the fabric, I'll start here. I've got it laid out. It's not folded. I don't have to press the wrinkles out. It's ready to go. And I know if it's flat and on this tray that I have already starched it and it's ready to go. So if I get a duplicate piece and I still have some leftovers that I want to use up first, that way I end up with a larger chunk at the end instead of lots of small pieces. That's why I keep it on this. And again, I don't like to have to re-iron my fabric. This way it's ready to go. It stays flat. And then at the end of the month, when I've gotten my pieces and my blocks sewn, I can stack everything up on here, put it away, and then it doesn't take a lot of room because if you don't put this on here, it's very shallow. You can stack them. And that way your fabrics are ready to go. You can put your instructions, everything you need right on this tray and set it aside until you get your next month. And that helps keep it doable for me, organized, and again, efficient because I don't have to re-iron.